Welcome to the Platform Podcast, where we talk to coaches, athletes, experts, and real people to learn about their approaches to training, nutrition, mindset, and much more. I am your host, Jordan Kundi Wright, founder and head coach of the Twin Cities Kettlebell Club, and our mission is to become our best selves through sport. This episode is brought to you by KettleGuard, the first wrist guard designed specifically for kettlebell sport training. To perform at your best, you need the right gear. And the problem with most wrist guards is that they're bulky, uncomfortable, or they just don't hold up to the demands of serious training. Fortunately, KettleGuards are different. They're the first wrist guards that were designed by kettlebell athletes specifically for kettlebell sport athletes. Their patented wrist guards are lightweight, flexible, durable, and accepted in competition. They're built to keep you focused on your lifts and not on your wrists. Whether you're brand new to kettlebell sport or a seasoned veteran, every lifter should have KettleGuards in their kit bag. Speaking of KettleGuards, in this episode, we are joined by Jessica DiBiase, one of the creators of KettleGuards. And she is an OG in kettlebell sport. She's a pioneer and the first female master of sport in long cycle. Jessica shares her journey from founding the first all-women's kettlebell sport team, the famous Ice Chamber Kettlebell Girls, to coaching thousands of athletes over her decade-plus career. We explore the importance of building community in sport, navigating challenges as a trailblazer, how mindset plays a crucial role in achieving greatness, and we also dive into what makes kettlebell sport uniquely challenging and yet so transferable to other sports and other life pursuits. I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed making it. And of course, if you do, please leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcasts and share it with a friend or two. And if you have any questions or need support, you can reach out to me, twincitieskettlebellclub@gmail.com. And of course, if you are interested in coaching, you can reach out to me clicking on the coaching interest form found in the episode notes. Now, without further ado, let's step onto the platform with Jessica DiBiase. All right. Welcome into the Platform Podcast. I am incredibly excited to welcome in Jessica DiBiase as my guest this week. She is a master of sport, the first women's master of sport in long cycle, and the co-founder of the world famous Ice Chamber Kettlebell Sport Team, the first female-only kettlebell sport team in existence, as well as being a successful entrepreneur, the maker of the KettleGuard, a world-renowned trainer, running a successful business, an entrepreneur, personal trainer, mom, and just general badass kettlebell OG. Welcome into the Platform Podcast, Jessica. I'm excited to have you.
I love it. That was like awesome. I'm gonna take that intro with me and like put some music to it and just play it every day.
I think we can do that. We'll give you your fire. You get yourself fired up in the morning mantra, right? Like
I love it. Actually, I think we all need to have that, like some kind of intro that, what is it? Like I always love like the walk-in song for like athletes, right? When they're coming up to bat, you know what I mean? Or they're going and playing basketball. I love that it's there like that.
What would be your walk-up song? First question.
Oh my God, it's so amazing. I knew you were gonna ask me that as soon as I said that. And I think I've always thought that if there were two artists that best described me, you're gonna laugh. It'd be Tupac and James Taylor. So, but I think
totally, but basically the same person. So.
Yeah, that's what I think. Thank you for realizing that. I feel really seen in this moment. I think that I think James Taylor would be my song for later. But I think if I was to pick up my walk up to base, smack a home run kind of song, it would probably have to be America's Most Wanted. Yes, please, we'll take that.
I love it. I love that. Now,
so that's it. What would yours be?
Oh gosh.
That's a good one. Right?
Yeah, you flipped it around on me. I'm not.
I did it. I know.
I'm not used to being asked questions. I like song number 2 by Blur is one that always gets me high. It would depend on what though, right? And I was just going to ask you, like,
Totally.
kettlebell sport, if you were walking up onto the platform, would you be more rock or would you be more James Taylor? Like, are you trying to get yourself hype or are you trying to keep yourself like chill?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think through all the years of training, and getting ready, I almost think that I spent years. I mean, actually, it was sort of a joke. I remember I was up on the platform next to like Catherine Ines, and I remember she cracked up. I think we played Jay-Z Hard Knock Life, and she want like the whole. And I had asked Steve. It was like at our gym, so I'd asked him to play this song when I went up. So she didn't really get a choice in the matter. But I remember when we got off, she was like, I wanted to like literally, she was like, that is like the worst song to like, live to. But I thought the like melody was like, no, 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 right? Like, and so it
Yeah.
kind of kept my like heart rate from going to
Steady rhythm.
high, right? No, no, no. So because that was always this like, there's this, moment where you're not sure, right? Where you're trying to get your numbers and you just want to keep your grip. You don't want to get your heart rate up too high, and everything kind of it's like this perfect confluence of events. Like everything kind of has to happen at the same time in order for the magic to happen on the platform. And I think it was always a struggle for me to like not get my heart rate too high. And so I think I'd always play, as hard core rap as possible, but I think ultimately maybe James Taylor would have been the better bet because it would have calmed me prior to going on. So I think maybe now I might do JT on my way to the platform, but I would still keep Pac and Biggie and Jay-Z and Snoop and my rap family, I think, on while I'm going.
Okay. RTJ, are you a Run the Jewels fan as well?
Yeah. I mean, I think I think one of the things I've also working alongside people like Steve, who just really had a love of old school hip hop and just music. Like I'm a lover of all of it from the beginning to now, and it's my favorite genre for sure of music. So I'll take it. I love it. I love music. I love music in general. I think we started our conversation with that.
Yeah, you're a West Coast, you're like a West Side ride or die girl. So
Yeah.
you fuck with Biggie? Like, are you still good with the East Coast? You still good with the East Coast? Is that beef
I try
over?
to like just stay neutral there. I'm like, I just like what I like. I listen. I'm like, oh my god, now that's a really sensitive topic, right? So I think I'll play whatever kind of moves me. And I mean, kettlebell sports still and competing still to this day takes kind of everything that I've got. So whatever can hype me up and get me to that point. But I would still say 9 times out of 10, that's what I'm listening to when I'm doing a set in my gym or I'm competing. I just can't really, it's hard for me to really get, it's just kind of so gritty that I need something to match it. I need a song to match the grit. Right?
I can feel that for sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna share we've got the TCKB lifting mix, and it has all sorts of stuff on, a lot of heavy rock, but also a lot of hip hop, a lot of rap on there as well. So
I can't wait to hear it.
I'll add you to that because it's like 500 songs, so it covers a pretty wide.
Covers all the bases.
Yeah, it covers all the bases. But so for those of you that don't know, for the people that don't know who you are, don't know your backstory like I do, who aren't big kettlebell nerds, tell us a little bit about your origin story. Like, what's your background that got you into like fitness, and how did you stumble upon this crazy sport that is kettlebell sport?
Yeah, it's like my favorite question, so I appreciate you asking. I mean, to go all the way back, I always say that my dad had me in the water before I could walk. So we were a really, I come from a really, really, really long line of athletic humans. And to be honest with you, super successful entrepreneurs. So I think like that was always I was always swimming in those waters. My dad competed against Mark Spitz in swimming, almost made it to the Olympics. My great aunt was in Wimbledon. My great grandfather was the first pro Jewish boxer. Fun fact there. My other grandfather was running marathons into late 70s, early 80s. So it was just in my blood to move, to be athletic, to take health and wellness seriously. You know what I mean? Literally, like it's all that I knew. My dad had a couple of books on his shelf, and one of them was emotional intelligence, right? How to think and communicate to people effectively. That was huge. And just kind of the art of eating and moving your body. So I mean, he really prescribed to all of this at a very young point in my life. So it's kind of all that I knew. Fortunately, I really say that because I think I always say, if you're in my own training, I always say, if you're healthy, you can think about everything. Sky's the limit. And if you're not healthy and you're not well, there's only one thing you can think about, and that's how to get well.
Yeah.
So I want to stay as well, and I want the people around me to be well. Fast forward, I was a competitive gymnast. I competed in triathlons. I was good enough to play tennis in college, but then they removed the funding, so that didn't happen. But that's where I went, and then just kind of like just became obsessed with working out all the time and training that way. My daughter is singing in the background, but you can Chapel Rowan. We can put that on our playlist too. And then when I graduated, I went right to grad school and kind of went the route of, pharmaceutical sales, and just knew that I loved health and wellness and thought that was like a really good fit after grad school. And during that time, I met Maya and Steve, and they had started the Ice Chamber, and I kind of joined forces with them. And they were sort of doing like CrossFit-esque, workouts and stuff in their backyard, and then started the gym. And then I kind of came on board with them. And it was right. It's kind of at that time that CrossFit was just super, super popular. And Steve, his background was in like, music and tech recruiting. And so he kind of like,
when was Ice Chamber founded? I like
this was like
2007.
Yeah. Something, right? To be honest, I don't remember actually even the exact, but it would say like somewhere around then, or maybe even slightly earlier. But for him, he bringing the music and that piece, he just thought about like boy bands and girl bands, and so he kind of was like, what we need to kind of like have like a girl band, and I was like, okay. And so we just sort of formed this, and he had somehow met up with Valery Fedorenko, who's the godfather, kettlebell sport, and kettlebells name on a lot of them. But he had wanted to come up with some idea, and you kind of position this with Maya and I, like, how can we sort of have something that's not CrossFit-esque, but still like gritty and tough and hard, but, not totally crazy high impact, you know what I mean? But that's high intensity and is like something that people can compete in, right? Because people love to compete. And that isn't something that you have to stop competing in when you're like 30, right? Like there's still to this day nothing that's more awesome. Well, two things about kettlebell sport is that it's so unbelievably strong, and kind of this high intensity workout with low impact. So you get the like muscular skeletal health work with all the cardio, but then you also get to compete with 8-year-olds and 80-year-olds. There's no other place you can do that, right? So it's powerful. So we wanted to kind of create that thing that kind of made us a little bit more niche, and made our gym and made what we were, just our program different. And so that's sort of how I fell into it. I can't say that all of a sudden I like went to Eastern Europe, I was somewhere like in Eastern European countries and said, oh, we got to bring this back here. I think it was the mixture of talking with Steve and talking with Valery Fedorenko, and just kind of getting certified. Steve Cotter. I mean, some of these guys are just, from the beginning, and we just kind of started to like learn it and get certified in it and figure it out. And the more we did it, we just, oh my God, we fell in love with it. And then I thought this just really combined everything that, I felt excited about as an athlete, but also as like a business person, because nobody there like a kettle, ball, like what the hell is that? Such a weird thing. And it was sort of like both frustrating and exciting to have to constantly explain to your family. Like they were like, I have no idea what you're doing. This isn't real estate. Okay. This isn't finance. I just don't get it.
Sales like, I get, but this kettlebell thing, like
100%, the sport was weird. Like there just was nothing that sort of, they just didn't get it. And then finally I just started to massage ways to like help them understand it. It's like cardio powerlifting. You see people doing it, but they seem like barbells. Well, this is like with kettlebell, but it's more ballistic. It's more dance-like. I've always found myself using words that like, I kind of feel like modern society could kind of like connect to, they could relate to that. So it just didn't feel like so bizarre. You know what I mean? This like metal thing with a handle and you're like putting it over your head. It was so much more, there was just so much more finesse to that. To me, I've always seen it. It's so much more artistic. And so we just kind of started, we built the team and we traveled around all over, the US and internationally. And during that time we created a product and that got a patent for it, and and started selling it all around the world. And we kind of thought, hey, there's not a whole lot you need for this sport, right? Like soccer, you're not going to go out and play soccer without a shin guard. You're not going to go out and do kettlebell sport without a kettle guard, or at least have access to it, because I know everybody's got their opinions, but it's also really nice if that damn thing's landing on your forearm. It feels pretty good. So you have a little bit of, a little cushion, and you could pretty much get the best workout of your life with two things. You know what I mean? This kettlebell, kettle guards, and not a whole lot of space. And so I said, I'm sold.
Yeah,
So yeah,
size of a phone booth and a kettlebell, and
correct.
kettle guards. If kettle guards for those of you that don't have massive wrists like mine.
Right, sure. I don't have massive wrists. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or or just want to have the option of freaking having the thing. I mean, it's you don't have to buy 7 jackets to do this. There's not a lot. It's not like ice hockey, you know what I mean? Or lacrosse or any of these sports that are wonderful, but you need, huge bags. But we were crazy, Jordan. We, at one point, we would carry our kettlebells. I remember going through the Denver airport, which is like 10 towns,
Yeah,
just like I'm
dude.
still sweating from walking through that airport, right? Carrying my 45-pound, 20 kg kettlebell through the Denver freaking airport to
And
put
people
it
are
on. I
like,
mean,
look at this
people thought we
crazy
were
woman.
the bombs. I mean, it was nuts. But I had tunnel vision. I saw one thing. I knew what I knew. I knew how powerful this sport is, and I still do. Now I have the same passion and the same conviction. I know what it can do for people. I know what it's done for me. I know that it's kept me in the strongest shape, and mentally and physically ever, and it's done that for thousands of people I've worked with. And it continues to kind of be this cool, still fringy and niche movement, but a hell of a lot, bigger. And no one, now when you've kind of arrived, when you see, Jennifer Lopez and Alex Rodriguez in one of their gyms they owned, you know what I mean? I saw it like 6 years ago when they were a thing, maybe that was whatever. Before she was with Ben Affleck, but I remember seeing them.
Again, which time?
Yeah, again, the second time. But I remember just looking at them, and like they were doing some kind of swing with it, and I thought, okay, perfect. And they were carrying kettlebell sport balls, so it wasn't like you're black, your typical one. So,
Yeah.
but in any event, I knew what it could do, and I knew that it would help a lot of people, and it was really fun to be back to competing again in something that I loved, and it was fun to break barriers doing it, as a woman, and something that was kind of traditionally a Hans and Franz kind of thing. And he's, you know what I mean? He's like big
Yeah.
pickle juice
You
drinking
can't.
dude,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
The women
right.
they can't use
This
the 2 kettlebells because it hurt the breasts. Like,
this is
okay, yeah,
exactly it,
sure,
right? The
yeah,
whole thing. So I really love just thinking that I had some really small part in this movement that's now big and awesome, and has beautiful humans like yourself that are part of it. I mean, it's a pretty badass community of really exceptional humans,
yeah.
honestly.
Definitely is. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
You are not a small part. You're a pretty major
Mm-hmm.
part of this journey, especially for women.
Thank
Like,
you.
let's be real. Like, this sport was very patriarchal. It still
Mm-hmm.
is. It still has some pretty strong patriarchal tendencies. But like, one of the things I was always so impressed with from the ice chamber,
Mm-hmm.
was you guys really like just shattered the whole perception that women can't compete in this sport, or they can't handle the heavy weights, or they can't
Yeah.
like you competed in what weight class? But I know you
I was
lifted
in
24
58
kg belt.
kg. Yep. When I I'm looking at, actually, so yeah, this was Master of Sport, November 7th. I have to remember like what year that was. And that was the AKC Classic in Las Vegas. And that's when I first got that was like the first title in the US. And then I was at one point the North American record holder in 24 kg biathlon, and I was in the 58 kg weight class at that
Okay,
time.
so
That's
you're
pretty
like,
cool.
I'm gonna take this bell that's like 43% of my body weight, and
Yep.
I'm gonna lift it over my head over 100 times,
Yep.
without putting it down intent. Like,
Yep.
and for like, there was just it was just one of those things that it pushed the boundaries and really kind of challenged the perception that a lot of people, the assumption or the preconceived notion that people had, that women can't lift heavy, or if you're gonna
Yes.
be, you gotta be big, and like,
100%.
and like, I remember the first time I saw you snatching the 24 kg, I was like, holy shit, like, she is skinny and just making that bell fly. And here I am, this like 280-pound former college offensive lineman, like, working with a 16 or a 20 and suffering. I was like, holy shit, this woman is incredible. So it was really, really cool to see you and see the whole team. Cause I mean, you guys had just, a little bit of success on the international stage with the Ice Chamber. What were just some of the highlights that were like memories that stick out to you while you guys were doing this? Some of the most impressive performances that you saw either from yourself or from your teammates.
Well, they were really, I mean, you know, the gym was amazing because it did kind of house the start of this, and people would kind of come visit us from all over the world. It was kind of this neat sort of like, moment in time. So I feel like it's always cool to be the first to something, you know what I mean? Kind of, it's exciting because no one's really done it before, right? Yeah. And I think everybody that I was a part of, and that wasn't even part of like the founding team, but just went on to compete around there and at the gym, were amazing because they were all a lot of them, I think actually all of them were moms, right? They were also working professionals running their own businesses or being part of businesses, and they were really like training really hard, and we were also like trying to figure it out. We were kind of creating algorithms for it too. We were creating training manuals and blueprints for something that really hadn't necessarily been done. So I think that part was just exciting because it was like front ground, front line, like we were creating. So when you're in that creating mode, I think that is just super exciting. And then also just, I think we all just sort of knew you were in kind of the secret society where you knew what that like game recognized game, right? You're like, oh my God, I know at minute 7, your mouth is like, you know what I mean? You can like barely breathe and you're trying to catch your breath and God, right? You're just right. And you're like, oh my God. And you just need to kind of drop your elbow and you're just trying to get that back swing. And there's just so many things that are going through your head. And you just know that person knows. And even though you had family or friends come watch, they didn't know what you knew. And so that was like, I think that was super exciting. I mean, I think there was a lot of I mean, when the one I told you, like, I mean, I really remember going to Colorado and going and carrying those belts. That was really a very momentous moment because we all were carrying them. I mean, we're nuts. Like literally walking.
How many girls were there on the team at that point?
I think there was 4 of us. I think it was myself. I think it might have been Maya at that point, maybe Sarah, Surya. I was really honestly trying to remember sometimes when I think about it, like it feels like it happened yesterday and then it feels like it was, many moons ago. And yet it's all kind of it's been such a huge part of my life. I've never really like left it, I've been fortunate enough to be still in this game, doing it like for a long time. I think, a lot of them they don't compete anymore. They're not doing, they're still, I think they might still be involved in it, but I think just might've been 4 of us that I want to say, but we were all just like totally sweating, just carrying those things, putting them through the, like that little baggage, thing, and having the alarm go off, and literally people thinking that they were like absolute bombs because we were carrying them. They were like our carry-on bag. I mean, it's just insane. I think the weigh-ins, I mean, oh my God, right? The weird ass things you do. There was like a competition in New York. I remember the Reebok gym at that point, and we're, hanging out in a freaking sauna for probably, I don't know, too long. I kept going up to get weight, and you're half a
non-heavyweight problems you're talking
right?
about. As
a
heavyweight, I have no idea what you're.
This was like because people would go, "Oh, it's kind of crazy," and I was like, "Not crazy." Like if it's 1 pound, and that means that like it's a differential of like 25 reps, you can be darn sure I'm going to sit in that sauna. I don't care what anybody says, for like another couple minutes just to make sure that I made weight. But I mean, these were all kind of these funny stories and the things that we would all do together, and just the weird snacks we'd have and the music we'd listen to. And I think, those are some of the things that, sort of really stand out in my mind. But we were supportive of each other, and it definitely, I think we did the best that we could to kind of have a sisterhood. At times it did, I think there were moments where Steve was a little like, Bella Caroli-ish, you know what I mean? To all of us, I think he was pretty, like, he was coaching us for a while, and it was like, double days. And we were really probably, if anything, I think there were times we were just probably overtraining and training too hard because we just wanted to be the best.
Yeah.
Right. And so we were kind of, we were just, that's all we could see was just whatever that meant. So, there were things that you probably would look back on and go, I probably didn't need to do all that. That was a little overkill. But we did work really hard, and we really tried to bring our best. Like, we took it seriously. Like, we were a professional operation, if you will. We didn't just pick up this thing and show up with, jeans on. Like, we came as freaking prepared as possible. Mm-hmm.
So what do you think has evolved in your approach from like both training and programming from those days to now? Because we all look back and like, oh man, if I only knew then what I know now. So for that reflection, what are some of the things that you look back on and you're like, oh, I would have done this differently? Or how has your training approach kind of evolved since those early days?
I thank you for asking that too. I would say, like, 100% unequivocally, I'm just not overtraining anymore. Now, I think I'm not overtraining anymore because it doesn't warrant that. Like, I still, believe it or not, like, I biathlon, but I have not gotten my master of sport in snatch only. And that is still my goal. So I still have to crack. I've got 98, but I've not hit 100 at 58 kg, 100 freaking snatches. So I am still, believe it or not, Jordan, yay, going after that goal. And I've had 2 babies and businesses and deaths and COVIDs and all the things, but I'm still going to hit that goal. And it'll be so stinking sweet when I do. But I don't need to. I was really overtraining. I was just doing more than I needed to. And it just, you hit a wall at a certain point because kettlebell sport is really psychological. I know every sport is, but there's the mental piece. So now when I think about it, like, I'm training from my head down, not from my chin down. And I don't think that I thought about what I needed. I just, if it was like in my training program and that's what Tuesday said to do, I was going to do Tuesday. You know what I mean? If Thursday, like, I didn't go, just how do you feel today? I didn't do enough of that. So I think now I do more of that. I realize that you don't need to, overtrain to get better. If anything, I think, you can get the results that you need without doing that. I've really kind of changed. And also, like, my timeline is my timeline. It doesn't belong to somebody else's anymore, right? When you're part of a team or you're under a coach or you have a different, gym or whatever it is, there was a different kind of pressure I constantly felt. And I just don't feel that pressure anymore. Like, I've done everything, you know what I mean? I don't have anything to prove. Now everything that I'm proving is to myself. It's not to other people. I hope I continue to be inspiring to other people because that's what I want to be, but I have nothing to prove to anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
So my training reflects that.
Do you coach any athletes currently in kettlebell sport?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I totally do. And I now, it's awesome. Like, Lorna and I have found our way, back together again. It's another amazing human who I've had the pleasure of, working and training alongside.
She's been on this podcast too, and
I love her. She's just the best, right? She's just like,
shout out to Lorna.
She's also so New York, I love her. She's just right. So, but we've always been great friends, and now we get to train with each other too. So we train virtually, and that's been another great thing. I think, before COVID happened, I did a ton of virtual training with my clients because they're erratic and they're busy. But I think once COVID set in, and I just think it just changed the whole dynamic, right? Like, you can compete virtually if you need to. And so I think it, like, made the barrier to entry a little bit less steep. Like, oh, you want to do, or even just now, here's another thing. When we were competing, it was like, you competed in 10-minute sets. You competed in, like, biathlon, you competed in snatch only, or it was now, I think now there's 5-minute sets, and there's 30 minutes, or, there's just more to choose from. And I can tell you right now that, like, a 5-minute set is a lot easier for somebody who's new to the sport to get into doing than, like, 10 minutes. I mean, so I do, but yes, I definitely, have clients that I'm training all ages and all stages in the game. And, it's actually really cool. I have stay-at-home moms that are like, hell yeah, you know what I mean? Like I found
Yeah.
the sport, and I've had ones that have been, in it, OG athletes that are coming back being like, I want you to train me. I want to just, keep on working to excel in the sport. I have one client who's, in her 70s, who's been I love her competing in kettlebell sports. She's international for, I don't know, 10 or 15 years too. So it's really neat. I mean, it's a really nice collection of people. I cannot say there's just like one style of, athlete, really
Yeah.
like everybody.
That is fantastic. So
Isn't that cool?
how do you thread the needle that you just articulated for yourself, where you're like, I didn't need to train as frequently as I thought I needed to make the progress that I wanted to make, and you were probably overtraining, but also this sport requires a decent amount
Mm.
of volume, consistency, conditioning, all of those things. So how do you thread that needle of with your athletes, of not overtraining them and giving them the permission structure to check in with their body, and not just being like, well, coach said to do this, so this is what I'm going to do? Because that's something I struggle with sometimes as a coach, where it's like, how do I make sure that I
Yeah.
give my athletes the permission structure to listen to their body while still making sure that they're training appropriately for the goals that they've set, or the goals that we've set together?
I think that is always going to be something that's super organic and hard as a coach. So I love to say, hey, Jordan, like, here's exactly what I do, and it
Come
works
on,
perfectly.
give
You know
me
what I
the
mean? You're like, give me the goddamn answer. I would love, that's an answer I'd love to have, like that is like a sure shot. I try to lead by example. So I try to let them know, like, I'm not perfect. I'm not the exact thing you should follow, but here is what I'm doing, and it's working. And I think just in the same way, Dr. Gabrielle Lyons, I love her, but she says, finally, muscular skeletal health is having its time in the sun. You know what I mean? And finally, we're having conversations now more about like, how do you build your muscular skeletal health? How do you build strength? How do you not just like become obsessed with just cardio all day long? And nothing's wrong with cardio, but I think now we're seeing that like strength is the real king, right? Cardio is a queen, strength is king. And so you
I
just
feel like
don't,
there's
I think
a
there's a different focus and a different thing around that when you just kind of reframe it a little bit. I think people can see it differently.
Yeah, and I think there's a different experience based on gender on that, because like
Yeah, I agree.
for me, like I was never a cardio queen. Shocking. I don't mean to really
Yes, totally.
startle anybody, but I was never a cardio queen. But I was always pushed to like get bigger, faster, stronger, right? That was
Yeah.
always the thing, right? Like as a
Yep.
dude,
Sure.
you always
Yep.
wanted to be big and strong, right? So I would like, lifting heavy was never demonized for me. Like my I was always pushed to lift heavy weights. But I feel like that it, like for women, that is now finally having its moment in the sun. And on the other side
Yeah.
of it, for men, like you've got Joel Jameson, who I have a ton of respect for and is a great conditioning coach. Reinforcing for men, like, hey, cardio is not going to kill your gains, bro. It's actually going to make sure that you don't die, and it actually helps with
That's it.
mitochondrial turnover. And if you actually want to be able to recover from your hypertrophy sessions, you need an aerobic base to build from. So like, don't skip your cardio day, just like you don't skip leg day. Like maybe you should focus more on your resting heart rate than your max bench. Like
I
things
mean,
like that.
it sounds like you are definitely, I'm like, I'll take a page from your playbook. I mean, I think everything that you just said is really good. And I think what you're giving people is not only the emotional permission, but you're giving them a little science to
Yeah.
sink their teeth into, right? So
Like,
you're kind
why
of
does
saying,
this
look,
matter?
like clinically, this might be something you may want to think about, right? And also, I think I really do think I sound like my parents right now, but I really do think that with technology and social media and just like all the things in our heads, our time is less. You know what I mean? Like we just don't have the same time because there's just way more distractions and way more things pulling at our time. So I think that they almost appreciate when you give them permission to not have to spend, 45 minutes or an hour or whatever doing that. They're like, cool. You know what I mean? I can get this done. And I also just think that I've been a huge proponent my whole life. And certainly in the last years of just diversification, same way you would like, you know, change your stocks around in financial investing. You want the same thing, I think, with, your brain gets bored, your body gets bored. So I've never done, I try to mix up one of my kettlebell. I mean, my sets are different. I try to mix those up, even though it's like, kettlebell sport, but I've done, lots of different ways to train them and not just going. I used to go in. So put it this way, Jordan, I used to go in, I would just do 10-minute snatch sets and 8 minutes. Like, oh my God, it would just be too much. And now I'll do, you know, a 4-minute set, or I'll do intervals now, or God forbid, I'll do max on one hand, take a 90-second break. I would never have allowed myself to do that and pick up the kettlebell and do
Because
the
you're
other
gonna
arm.
have
I
to
know
do
it
that in
sounds crazy, but
competition.
like, I just, yeah, I know. I mean, it was like, I would never have done that. So my trainings, it's like, I'm still using the same modalities, Jordan. I'm just using them differently,
Yeah.
right? It's like, I would say those are the differences, right? It's like the ingredients in the kitchen are still kind of the same, but I'm just making different dishes with them now.
Mm.
And that's exactly kind of, what I'm doing. And I don't know, I've always been a big fan and just like mixing shit up. I don't want it to look or be the same, but I also think that the basics are great. Like you can add a lot to like, good lettuce. You can put lots of cool toppings on that, but make it a strong bed of arugula and romaine and fun greens and add what you want to it. But I like the idea of combining and just keeping the basics there, but changing the toppings around.
Yeah, no, that I agree, and because especially if you're gonna do it as long as you and I have been doing it. You've
Yes.
been doing it
Yep.
longer than I've been doing it, but like
Yeah.
if you're gonna be doing it for over 10 years, like you need to change it up. You can't just be doing the same things over and over. And it's okay.
Definitely.
It's okay to take a
Hmm.
break. It's okay to be like, I can't tell you how many athletes I've had be like, I really think I want to take like a few months off from picking up the kettlebell and just do like barbell or yoga, or I want to do, and I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck yeah, let's do it. They're like,
Definitely.
wait,
Definitely.
wait, what? I'm like, you don't see NFL players training for football all year round. You don't see,
That's it.
like every professional athlete that competes in a sport professionally has an off season. Nobody
Yeah.
competes year round, right? Like
Yeah.
the only
Yeah.
professional athletes that I can think of that compete year round are kettlebell sport athletes. And
That's it.
it's like, like that doesn't make any sense to me. It's like they're
No, it doesn't. Nope. You're
take an off
totally right.
season, like periodize your programming in the same way
Yeah.
any other athlete does, and that's totally okay.
That's exactly right. Yep. And it's just nice enough too. I have a strength coach and I've got a kettlebell training partner. And so I also kind of sometimes don't rely on my head. I rely on them. You know what I mean? To help me like come up with plans. And I
Coaches
also allow
need
myself to
coaches.
do, yeah, we do. Right. And, I laugh. I'm part of the trend, but I throw on a weighted vest and like also be outside and like hit the hills and put on a podcast and you know what I mean? Do that too. So I
Rucking is
think
one of my
there's just,
favorite things to do.
isn't
I
it great?
love rucking.
So, right. And you can educate yourself and listen and talk and do all the
My
magical things
task.
that happen with your brain. So I think it's just, I'd like to think that, I'm just evolving, but in order to stay healthy and as injury free as possible and loving what you're doing, just don't overdo it. You know what I mean? Like, and so that's kind of the key. I think
Yeah.
that's what I've been doing differently
Everything in moderation,
and it
including
works.
moderation.
Yeah, and just making sure that I'm balancing. But I love kettlebell sport, and the way I've been able to love it is not doing it every day. Mixing it up with steady state cardio and strength work on top of that. It's made me feel good.
So I have a two-part question for you.
Great.
And I'll tell you both parts and then we'll take them one by one. Kettlebell sport I think is very different than any other discipline. So I want to that's the first part is it's very different than anything else, and what makes it different and sets it apart from other disciplines, but then it also has greater transferability to other disciplines I think than almost any other sport I've ever
I couldn't agree more. I love that.
encountered.
Yeah.
So I want
Yep.
to take the first part first. What do you think sets it apart from other disciplines, and then we'll say like what makes it so transferable.
What sets it apart is, I mean, I've said this, I think forever. I've still not found something that, I mean, you kind of get your cake and eat it too, right? It's pretty darn awesome for strengthening your muscles, and it's pretty darn freaking cardiovascular. You know what I mean? Like, whoa, right? To have,
Mobility too.
oh
It's
my
also
God,
gonna
and
make you more mobile.
mobility. I mean, and it just combines, the swing and the hinge movement. I mean, it's like there's just so many wonderful things that all happen at the same time when you do it. It's very, very unique
Yeah.
to kind of, any sport. But the idea that you do kind of get the like two main things I feel like that you're after, which is like, getting the muscular skeletal health, power, endurance, and cardiovascular like benefits just seems sort of like out of this world, right? I've yet to find something that quite gives you those simultaneously,
Yeah.
right?
Without the
Together
wear and tear on your joints like
without
that.
the wear and tear on your joints, which was the second thing I was going to say, because you get something that is legitimately fairly high intensity without the impact. I just don't know where I can't find that.
Yeah.
So, I would say that would be how I really think it sets itself apart.
Okay, I love that. It's you. I think that that's a great answer, right? It gives you more of the. It gives you more of all of the good things with less of the. Like you can still get joint injuries and overuse injuries, but
Yeah, it's not perfect.
that's anything, right? Like
Yeah, that's right. Yep,
there's a much lower risk profile in that regard. Um, I,
that's
I
right.
I love that. And then, so what do you think makes it transfer so well? Because we were talking about this before we started
Yeah,
recording. Like it's that like this is one of those things. Like as a football athlete, I'm like,
yeah.
man, I wish I had known about kettlebell sport when I was a high school football player, right? Like I'd have been a even better high school and college football player had I known about kettlebell sport back then. So like what is it that you think that and like
Gosh,
my daughter does it and it helps her with hockey. Like
that's it.
I've had other
Yeah.
athletes do it. It helps with wrestling, it helps with so many sports. Like it has such great transferability. Like what is it that you think about it that makes it so transferable to other disciplines as well?
Gosh, I mean, you and I were saying this. I always think it's my your daughter plays, ice hockey, and it's like it helps her like protect herself when she's a goalie. It's the hardest part. My son plays water polo. It's the hard, it's like it's like helps you when you're out there, kicking in an egg beater position for like freaking an hour. You know what I mean? Like literally in the middle of a pool. Um, I, from an anatomy standpoint, I don't know that I could tell you specifically why it is so transferable to gosh darn near any freaking sport, yoga, running, football, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
volleyball,
covers the
water
gamut.
polo, swimming. So I don't know, besides the obvious, besides it is really total body conditioning, I'm not sure exactly what muscle isn't being used. I think one time I read there were 400 muscles being recruited and activating when you do a freaking kettlebell swing. That's a shit ton of muscles that are happening. So to me, I just think you're naturally covering your bases with the amount of muscle usage in the body. You want to know my real reason?
Yeah.
I think it is psychological.
I was
Truly,
thinking the same
I'm
thing. I think
like,
the
I
neck up
think that like
transferability.
it is just a massive mind body, experience that I have yet to, other than I laugh and, I didn't want to do this, but I did give birth to a 9.5 and a 10-pound baby naturally. I might say that's the hardest thing next to this I've ever done. But
Yeah.
even this sport helped me psychologically prepare for that event in my life. It just did everything from the breath work to feeling like I'm literally underwater and I can't breathe and trying to keep my heart rate down. But I've never done anything so psychologically taxing, um, and physically at the same time as this. So I would say there's a massive amount of muscle recruitment, but there's a massive amount of like mental recruitment too. That's my theory.
I think you're right. I agree with you, and I think the only thing that I've ever found that came close to being as psychologically stressful as this is combat sports, where like you're actually physically
Totally.
you get punched in the face, like
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like those are physically taxing and also very mentally taxing. But obviously, there's a cost associated with those. Like I had to get my nose fixed because of boxing.
That's it. That's
Like,
right. Isn't this
so
great? Like
never
I
had to
was
worry about
literally,
that with a
I think
kettlebell.
about this all the time. I'm like, I don't want to be an MMA fighter. I don't want to be a boxer. I don't want to be a wrestler. So this is perfect. I'll stay right here in this lane, this kettlebell sport lane. All the serotonin and adrenaline and everything else that kind of hit
Well, and
to the nose.
it's still like it gives you so many times to show you how often your mind is a liar. Like
Yeah,
like every
it does.
training session,
Every training session,
every competition
everyone.
set, your
Yep.
mind will lie to you about what you're capable of and why you should
Yeah.
stop. And
True.
why do you do this to yourself? And then if you push through it,
Yeah.
then you come out the other side and you're like, yeah, no, I can do hard shit. I can do this.
I love you for that, Jordan. I would say that's exactly, I walk away saying that exact same thing. Like I literally get done with it and I'm like, I can do hard shit. And sometimes I literally just pop on and I'm like, I have to tell everybody, I just did a 10-minute set. I'm breathing super heavy, but I just did 75, snatches with the 20 kg on each arm. And I did it in my living room. And I really didn't want to do this tonight, but it's raining cats and dogs and didn't want to be outside in my home gym. And I wanted to come in and I did it. And I feel really good. And it's amazing. I'm going to share this goodness with whoever gets to encounter me after this. But it really changes the landscape for yourself. And I've always wished that for people. It's why I've been and will continue to be like a big proponent of this sport, because I know what it can do physically and psychologically for somebody, and that's a gift. That's a gift. So thank
Absolutely.
you for gifting me though.
Do you do you remind yourself after, like, when you have a day where you're like today, where you're like, I don't really want to do this, and then you do it and then you feel better, do you like make a mental note of that, like, hey, remember that you didn't want to do this, and remember how good you feel right now? Because
Yeah, I 100% do. I do. Yeah, I actually do. I'm doing that more. I'm
trying to
taking
do that more too.
inventory. Yeah, I'm taking
Yeah.
inventory. I'm trying to use it as a little mini, meditation. I think years ago we filmed like a kettle guard, commercial or something. And I remember thinking that it was like, I called it a movement, but it was like meditative, and there was all these kind of things. And I still see it that way. I still see it as like a my own kind of mini meditation. But I do stop and I'm super present, and I do think to myself, I'm really happy. I look at my body. I'm like, but thank you for allowing me to do this, because it brings me a lot of joy. And now I just kind of I'm more grounded in that space too.
I
You
love
know, yeah.
when you're in the groove on a snatch set, does your
hmm
mind go blank, and you're just like in your breath, or are you always thinking something technical? Is there always something that you're focused
I'm
on?
always thinking something technical. Yeah, I
Okay.
can't do blank. Yeah, I'm thinking like you have to get to 3 more reps. Like drop your elbow. Yeah, I'm 100% have to give myself. I've tried to go blank. I've tried, and that does not work for me. Then I just want to put the belt down. Then I feel like just dark. Like I'm in an abyss. I'm in a hole. I need to keep myself focused on something. So that's been the way to do it for me.
Okay. And
Yeah.
what are your I don't want to call them swing thoughts, but like what are the cues that do you have different ones on the way up and on the way down, or like
Yeah.
how do you go about cueing?
I love that. I love this. This is so cool. No one ever asked me these questions, but they're the things that kettlebell athletes think about all the time.
Yeah.
Definitely on the drop, I'm always focused on, because I still tend to bring my elbow away from me. So that's a problem. So I'm always thinking about drop your shoulder, you know what I mean? And bring
Drop
your
your
elbow
shoulder,
down.
let your
And
elbow.
then Lauren and I have been working perpetually on just breath work. So now I like time it. There's an exhale there, there's an exhale here, there's two at the top. So I try to really like remember that and stay in sync with that, because once you kind of, if like all of a sudden you get 2 reps out, you got to kind of bring it back again, and you don't want to be too far back off your number, because ultimately this is a sport about numbers. So there are days where I'm just doing it for time and get
Just
the
getting
heart
the
rate up a
volume
little
in. You're
bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But when I'm not, then I don't really, I have to be pretty strategic. So on the drop, that's what I'm thinking about. And then I'm always trying to push with the other leg on my way through, right? If I'm holding in my right hand and I'm pushing, I really want to like use that opposing leg. I
Yeah,
want to
because
do. It's a
you have
leg sport, core and leg,
you have a crossbody diagonal pathing on the way that
I
you
do. Yeah.
different than some people will do it more
Yeah.
straightforward, like Dennis Vasiliev does a much more
Sure.
straightforward
Sure.
and
Yep. Yeah.
classic kind of
Yeah.
style.
I
Why
agree.
the elbow? Why do you focus on keeping the elbow close? Like I know the answer to this, but I want you to tell our dear listeners, like, why is it important to keep the elbow close to the body on the drop on snatch? Why does that matter?
Because you're constantly in the whole, so much of the sport is about grip preservation. So you've got to be able to like keep your hand and your grip loose and blood pumping, and you can't get that kind of like dinosaur thing happening, where like you can't hold on any longer. So I am just trying, and I'm also just trying to utilize. Don't get me wrong, folks, you are clearly using your upper body when you are lifting kettlebells, but I always say that that's like 30% of the workout. The training, really the real meat potatoes of the training happen with your core and your lower half. So by bringing the elbow in, it just allows me to like almost I can almost cradle I can use more core, I can use more leg. It's not away from me. So I'm not leaking energy in the same way, right? If it's closer, there's just less energy leak, more grip preservation, more, accountability to my core and my legs.
Yeah, it shortens the path on the way down, so it
You nailed it.
doesn't pick up as much momentum, which allows you to preserve grip and allows you to
Right.
get the load into the core and the legs, which is
That's
where
right.
you want the
That's right.
load being felt, right?
That's right.
Especially on that backside opposing leg with your style.
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
You nailed it. This
I
is so
love
good.
that.
Can we meet like every week or something and have like a little chat? Please tell me this is not the last time we get to speak. This is
Oh,
so great.
definitely not.
Okay.
Definitely not. We're definitely going to connect more. There's no doubt
Okay.
about that.
Good. This is really good. I really appreciate you.
what role? I appreciate you too. Thank you. Like I couldn't tell. Like I'm glad we finally were able to make this
Me too.
happen.
I mean, this took a minute, but it was worth I'm so
We've
glad you
been
were
trying
patient
for a
with me.
while. Well, we both got kids. We're both
And now I'll never leave you. Now we're just going to be together forever. It's
That's
like great.
awesome.
Yeah,
I'm good with that. I'm good with
me
that.
too.
How does recovery and injury prevention play a role for you, both as an athlete and as a coach? Like how do you manage that? Because you've talked a lot about musculoskeletal health and taking care of your body.
Yeah.
How does that play in your philosophy?
Nutrition, I think more focus on that, like, which is just an ever like a constant conversation. I'm lucky enough to have great colleagues in this field and we talk a lot and work together at this. But, I'm not going to sit here and say you've got to have this amount of grams and then this. But me personally, I'm trying to be a lot more cognizant about the amount of protein that I ingest, how much I'm drinking every day, you know,
Of water, not
electrolytes,
of wine.
minerals, vitamins, you know what I mean? Yeah. Fortunately, I'm not addicted to that. Chocolate, I do. But just I think just paying a little bit more attention to like what's actually going into my body because I think that helps. Sleep, of course. I have a terrible habit of falling asleep on the couch every night. So I'm working on that, like little things like uninterrupted sleep. These things are not basic to me. They're pretty darn hard to do. So I'm working on them, but I think they play a huge role in recovery, fascia work, um, lowering your cortisols, talking to people more, picking up the phone. Like this stuff
Mhm.
actually is really helpful. Doing what we're doing here, making time that I believe that to heal is to connect. So, I can't tell you how many messages I just leave, but I'm just thinking about you. It doesn't matter if they never pick
I
up,
do
but at
that
least,
too.
right?
I love that.
Right?
That makes me happy
Yeah.
to hear because that I've actually heard from the addiction space, like connection is the
Hmm.
opposite of addiction, right? Like addiction is isolation and loneliness,
Yeah,
and
that's
connection
right.
is the antidote. Like that is the
That's
one
right.
that is one thing that I've heard,
That's right.
and I
That's
love
right.
that. It's
Yep. Oh, there's my, yep. I'm on borrowed time now because now I've got kids that are
no
reaching for
worries.
me. But yes, I would say that that's my, those are kind of the things that I hold near and dear. And you asked early on, so Tupac would come when I'm getting hyped up before my training set, during my set, and then I just listened to a lot of James Taylor. My 8-year-old tonight was asking me, she had to do an interview for gratitude because this is this time of year. That's a big practice for me too, by the way, Jordan. Is I'll ask you tonight what you're grateful for before we get off here.
Yep.
But I do that every time I'm done with any training. I always ask what you're grateful for. But my daughter interviewed me and she asked me what I was grateful for. And I said, I'm grateful for the music of James Taylor. And she said, well, why are you grateful for the music of James Taylor? And I said, because I lost my dad unexpectedly a few years ago. And it's been just a huge hole in my heart. He was
Sorry.
my best friend. And he, James Taylor was a huge thing for us. Like that's how I thought about my dad. And so now it's just been this most cathartic way to bring him in when I'm missing him the most. And I love it. And it's on all the time. And it's still the way I process emotion and feeling. But I also really believe that, I'm an effusive person. So you should tell somebody you're thinking about them when you're thinking about them. And I think it's really healing and helpful. But I would say insert James Taylor now. This is what I put him on. Tupac is when I go on the platform. James Taylor is when I'm having conversations with you.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's, I mean, well, and like that James Taylor after you're done lifting, like parasympathetic activation, if we're gonna go totally nerdy about it, right? It's like,
Jordan, we are like best friends. Oh my God. Wait, I've got to go because I've got my kids. But can I ask you what you're grateful for tonight? Can I end our conversation together with what you're grateful for?
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm always grateful for wonderful conversations with people like you. I am grateful that we were
Mm.
able to make this time together. And I'm grateful for hockey in Minnesota. I'm grateful for there are so many things in my life, but like I'm grateful for hockey. I'm grateful to watch my daughter like flourish into this little badass athlete that she's kind of turning into, and it's super fun to see and to get to be part of that journey and coach her on some of those things and take some of the lessons I've learned from kettlebell sport and that I've learned from coaching and being able to try and apply it as lovingly as I can with my
I
daughter
love it. I
while
love it.
dialing back my intensity a little bit. But I'm doing, yeah, those are the things that I'm really grateful for. How about you? What are you grateful for?
Good. I'm 100%, 110% grateful for this moment, this conversation. and just having this chat with you tonight, you know. And I mean that I have all these things I'm thinking about for our next talk already. So I'm happy that this kind of sparked and kind of opened up a whole world, you know, for us. One that we've had all this time together, and now we have all this new time together. But I really am grateful for you. I love your spirit, and I appreciate you like taking the time to connect with me tonight. I really do. So I'm
Thank you very
I'm
much.
definitely grateful for that.
I
And
feel that
Tupac
way.
and James Taylor
Oh,
and
that was so
hockey
nice.
and
All the
singing and
things,
all the things. Yeah.
all the things. Can I ask you one more? Can I ask you one more
Please.
question?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
This is one that's always the closer for me is if you could go back and give and give somebody that's brand new on their kettlebell sport journey one piece of advice as a beginner, a brand new person, what would that
Mm.
one piece of advice be that you would give to a brand new person?
Don't get frustrated. You know what I mean? Like I would say the hardest barrier to entry when you're new is just, oh my God, I always laugh. I became a world champion. It took me like 3 months to get the effing swing. I just couldn't get that rocking motion. So don't get frustrated. Be patient. Stick it through. You know what I mean? Even when you just want to like, oh, like, you know, get rid of, like throw the kettlebell down, just keep doing it. Stay with it. Do not give up. Like just be patient. Don't get too frustrated because this is the hardest it will ever be. You know, the basics will get less basicy, you know, they'll become more fluid. And when they do, you will open yourself up to a whole freaking world of a sport you never even knew that existed. And quite frankly, a lifestyle you never even knew that existed. So it is worth it.
Love it. Well, Jess, thank you so much. I know you got to go. You've got kids, you've got demands on your
Sorry,
life.
they're
This
being
is not,
pills
oh,
tonight. They're a
it's
pain in my
totally
butt.
fine.
Like you
I get
wouldn't,
it. I
I
get it.
do this for
So
a living. And I'm like, tonight, really? You got to, anyways, welcome to life, right?
fine. So yeah,
But again, this is
we're
like
all
the first, I hope, of
multifaceted.
many more conversations together.
Yeah, thank
So,
you so much. I really appreciate the
yeah.
time, and we will talk again soon. Thank you, Jess. Have a great night.
Bye, Jordan.